Welcome to our deep dive into humanistic psychology. We're going to be exploring this fascinating perspective that really puts the focus on you, the individual, and your potential for growth.
Right.
Our source material today comes from a platform called stoic.nu.
Interesting.
You might find this interesting because it's a discussion between a human and an AI.
Oh, wow.
Tackling these big social issues.
It's a very unique approach. Yeah, definitely.
And what's so fascinating about humanistic psychology is that it really emphasizes the uniqueness of each person's experience.
Absolutely.
It's all about recognizing your potential for growth, your ability to make choices, and really your responsibility for shaping your own life.
Yeah, it really emphasizes that agency that we all have.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
No.
So how does that contrast with other psychological approaches?
Oh, that's a good question.
You know, for someone who might be more familiar with, say, like Freudian ideas.
Well, Freudian psychoanalysis often focuses on unconscious drives and past experiences as kind of the main drivers of our behavior. Then you have behaviorism, which emphasizes external stimuli and learned responses.
Right.
Humanistic psychology kind of breaks away from that deterministic view, suggesting that we have more agency than those earlier theories would propose.
So it's almost like humanistic psychology is saying, hey, you're not just a product of your past or your environment. You have the power to choose your own path.
Exactly.
It feels very empowering.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. And historically, it was a little bit of a rebellion against those older schools of thought. Humanistic psychology emerged in the mid-20th century as a third force. And it was directly responding to what some psychologists saw as the negativity and limitations of psychoanalysis and behaviorism.
I'm struck by how radical those ideas must have seemed at the time.
It was definitely a shift in perspective.
What kind of pushback did these pioneers face when they were challenging that status quo? There was definitely resistance from the established psychological community at the time, but, you know, these individuals were passionate about their ideas. They really believed in the power of this new perspective.
It takes courage to go against the grain.
Absolutely, and you can't talk about humanistic psychology without mentioning, of course, Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers. They were instrumental in shaping this movement.
Okay, yes. Maslow, Rogers, those are the names that usually come to mind when you're thinking about this. What were their core contributions?
Well, Maslow, with his famous hierarchy of needs, emphasized the human drive towards self-actualization, reaching our fullest potential, right? And Rogers, known for his client-centered therapy, stressed the importance of unconditional positive regard. In other words, creating a space where you, as an individual, feel accepted and valued without judgment.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's interesting to think about how these ideas have kind of permeated our culture.
They really have.
I mean, who hasn't seen that pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Yeah, it's become quite iconic.
It really has.
Hasn't it?
But let's break it down a bit.
So
if self-actualization is at the top of that pyramid, does that mean you have to kind of conquer all the levels below it first?
That's the idea.
Like you can't become your best self if your basic needs aren't met.
You need that foundation. That's precisely the idea. Maslow believed that those basic needs like food, shelter, and safety have to be met before we can even begin to strive for things like love, belonging, and ultimately self-actualization.
This makes me wonder, where do you see yourself on that journey?
Oh, good question.
What does self-actualization mean to you?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big concept.
It is.
But I think we can all relate to it on a personal level.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then you have Rogers with his emphasis on unconditional positive regard.
Right. That unconditional positive regard.
Yeah, it sounds so simple, yet so powerful.
It really is.
Can you give us an example of how that might play out in real life?
Sure.
Like, what does that actually look like?
Imagine a child learning a new skill without fear of judgment.
Oh, okay.
They're free to experiment, make mistakes, grow, because they know they're loved and accepted regardless of the outcome. That's the power of this concept.
It makes me think about how having that supportive environment, that unconditional positive regard, it can really impact your confidence and your willingness to take risks.
It can be transformative.
But unconditional positive regard isn't just for children, is it?
Not at all. Think about a time when you felt truly accepted and supported, maybe by a mentor or a friend.
Yeah.
How did that impact your confidence and your willingness to take on new challenges?
Yeah, it's amazing how a supportive environment can make such a difference in how we see ourselves.
I really care.
And what we believe we can achieve.
Facts.
And speaking of how we see ourselves, doesn't Rogers also talk about self-concept and congruence?
He does, yeah.
How do those fit in?
So Rogers believed we all have an image of ourselves.
Okay.
Our self-concept. And when that aligns with our experiences in the world, we feel a sense of congruence.
I see.
But when there's a mismatch, say, we see ourselves as talented, but we keep facing setbacks.
Right.
That creates incongruence.
Yep.
Can potentially lead to inner conflict and anxiety.
Makes sense. So, like, if I picture myself as, like, this brilliant chef,
Yeah.
but I keep burning dinner,
Right.
that's going to create some turmoil for me.
A little bit of incongruence there.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But this is where those ideas of free will and personal responsibility come in, right?
Exactly. Humanistic psychology is very empowering. It says, hey, you aren't simply a product of your past or your environment.
Right.
You have the ability to make choices, to take responsibility for your actions,
Right.
and to shape your own future.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
It is very empowering. But I wonder, how practical is it to offer that unconditional positive regard?
That's a great question.
In every situation.
Yeah.
What happens when someone's actions are actually harmful?
That's a great point, and one that sparks a lot of debate.
Yeah.
While humanistic psychology emphasizes acceptance and understanding, it doesn't condone harmful behavior.
Right.
It's about seeing the potential for growth and change, even in difficult situations.
Okay.
So it's a complex issue,
Yeah.
for sure. But let's shift gears a little bit.
Cool.
We've been talking about how humanistic psychology really emphasizes personal agency, the power to make choices, right?
Right.
This also connects to how we relate to time.
Okay.
Humanistic psychology encourages us to focus on the present moment,
Right.
rather than dwelling on the past or worrying about the future.
That's something I think a lot of us struggle with,
It's a common challenge.
myself included.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in those thoughts, isn't it?
Yeah, those regrets about the past, those anxieties about the future.
Yeah, it is a practice.
Right.
And it can be challenging in our fast-paced world.
For sure.
But, consider this. When you find yourself lost in thought, what brings you back to the present?
That's an interesting question.
Maybe it's the feeling of sunshine on your skin.
Yeah.
Or the sound of laughter, or the taste of your morning coffee. Those small things can be powerful reminders to be present.
Yeah, those little sensory details
Exactly.
can really ground you.
Like a gentle nudge to come back to the here and now.
Right, yeah.
And speaking of those pioneers of humanistic psychology, I'm curious, what can you tell us about Maslow's fascination with peak experiences?
Yeah, those moments where you feel truly alive.
Exactly.
And connected to something greater than yourself.
Yeah, he was particularly drawn to those moments of intense joy, awe, wonder.
Didn't he study individuals who seemed to really embody this idea of self-actualization?
He did, yeah.
Like, woo.
People like Albert Einstein, Eleanor Roosevelt, Frederick Douglass.
Oh, wow.
Looking for common threads, patterns in their lives.
That's quite a group to be studying.
Right. He believed they represented the best of humanity, those who kind of transcended the ordinary and achieved a higher level of consciousness.
So what did he find?
Well, one of the things he observed was this capacity for what he called peak experiences.
Okay.
These were those moments of intense joy, awe, or wonder.
Yeah.
Often accompanied by a sense of connection to something larger than themselves. He believed these peak experiences gave us glimpses into our true potential.
Okay.
And could serve as a catalyst for growth.
So how can you cultivate those peak experiences in your own life?
That's a great question.
What activities or experiences bring you that sense of awe and connection?
It's a personal journey, right?
Yeah.
For some, it might be creative expression.
Okay.
For others, acts of service, connecting deeply with loved ones.
Yeah.
What activities light you up and make you feel truly alive?
I like that. It takes some of the pressure off.
It does, doesn't it?
It's not about striving for some perfect end state.
Right.
It's about finding those moments of joy and connection.
Embracing the journey and
And those moments that make us feel truly alive.
Right. So we've talked about Maslow.
Yes.
And his focus on peak experiences. What about Carl Rogers?
Okay.
What were some of his defining characteristics?
Well, Rogers was known for his deep empathy.
Okay.
And his unwavering belief in the inherent goodness of people. He believed that everyone, no matter their past or present circumstances, had that capacity for growth and positive change. This belief really deeply influenced his approach to therapy.
So it's not about judging or labeling people based on their past mistakes, but seeing their potential for growth and healing.
Exactly.
It's a very compassionate approach.
Very compassionate.
You say.
Absolutely.
So Rogers believed that by offering unconditional positive regard,
we create an environment where individuals feel safe to explore their vulnerabilities and strive towards self-acceptance.
Absolutely.
It's not about condoning harmful actions, but recognizing the person behind those actions and believing in their ability to change.
Exactly.
That's a powerful idea.
It is.
It makes me think about the importance of forgiveness.
Yes.
Both for ourselves and for others.
Absolutely.
Holding on to grudges or dwelling on past mistakes can really hold us back.
It can. It can really weigh us down.
Okay, so we've got Maslow with his focus on self-actualization, those peak experiences. Rogers with his emphasis on unconditional positive regard and the inherent goodness of people.
Right.
What unique perspective did Rollo May bring to the table?
Rollo May.
He's the third figure we mentioned earlier.
Yes. May, with his integration of existential philosophy, added a layer of depth and complexity to the humanistic perspective. He believed that facing our existential anxieties, things like the inevitability of death, the freedom to choose, the search for meaning.
Oh, wow. Those are some heavy topics.
Right.
It sounds like he wasn't afraid to grapple with those big, sometimes uncomfortable questions of existence.
Yeah, those big existential questions.
Yeah.
He argued that by embracing our freedom and responsibility, even in the face of uncertainty, we could live more authentic and meaningful lives. He saw anxiety not as something to be avoided, but as a potential catalyst for growth and self-discovery. It's about leaning into those existential questions rather than shying away from them.
Yeah, I'm starting to see how these three figures, each with their unique perspectives, created this really multifaceted movement within humanistic psychology.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not just one monolithic theory.
Right.
It's this dynamic and evolving perspective on what it means to be human.
And remember, this perspective isn't confined to just the realm of psychology. We talked about education and the workplace earlier. But let's explore a little bit more how these principles can create tangible change in those areas.
Yes. Let's get more practical here. How do these ideas actually play out in real-world settings like education and the workplace?
In education, imagine a classroom where the focus shifts from rote memorization to fostering critical thinking, creativity, and a genuine love of learning.
It sounds like a very different approach from the traditional model.
It is a different approach.
Where everyone's expected to learn the same material at the same pace.
It moves away from that standardization.
Yeah.
Imagine a learning environment where the student's voice is valued, where curiosity is encouraged, and there's room for exploration and discovery.
That sounds like a much more engaging and empowering learning experience.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's education.
Yeah.
What about the workplace? How can humanistic principles be applied to create a more positive and productive work environment?
Imagine a workplace where employee well-being is not just a buzzword, but a core value. What if employers recognize that each individual brings their unique skills, experiences, perspectives to the table, fostering a culture of open communication and collaboration?
It sounds like a dream.
Right.
I think many of us have experienced workplaces where communication is stifled, creativity is squashed, and employees feel undervalued.
Unfortunately, that is a reality in many workplaces.
Yeah.
But what if workplaces embraced a more humanistic approach? What if it was a place where employees felt safe to share their ideas, where their contributions were acknowledged and valued, and there's a genuine sense of community and belonging?
That would make a world of difference.
It would.
It's about creating a work environment where people feel inspired and motivated to do their best work. Not just because they have to.
Exactly.
But because they want.
It's about intrinsic motivation. And it's not just about making employees happy. It's recognizing that when people feel valued and fulfilled in their work, they're more likely to be productive, innovative, and engaged.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
If you feel respected and supported in your work environment, you're more likely to go above and beyond.
Absolutely.
It's a win-win for everyone involved.
It is a win-win.
So we've seen how these principles can be applied in education and the workplace.
Yeah.
But what about applying them to our own personal growth?
Oh, that's a great point.
How can we use humanistic psychology to become better versions of ourselves.
That's where the rubber really meets the road.
Right.
It's one thing to talk about these concepts, but putting them into practice in our own lives is where the real transformation happens.
Exactly. So what are some actionable steps?
Yeah, what can we do?
What are some practical tips and strategies?
Well, one of the most powerful tools we have is self-reflection.
Okay.
Taking the time to pause, step back, and really examine your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors.
I think a lot of people struggle to find the time for that.
It's true. It can be challenging.
In our busy lives.
It can be hard to prioritize, but it doesn't have to be a huge time commitment.
Okay.
Even just a few minutes each day can make a difference.
Okay.
It's about creating space for quiet reflection.
Right.
Maybe it's through journaling, meditation, or simply spending time in nature, asking yourself those tough questions.
Like what?
What are my values? What are my strengths and weaknesses? What are my goals and aspirations?
Right.
What truly matters to me?
It's about getting to know yourself.
Exactly.
On a deeper level.
Deeper level.
Without judgment or self-criticism.
Yeah, with self-compassion.
Right.
And another key aspect of personal growth is setting meaningful goals.
Okay. Goal.
These aren't just items on a to-do list. These are goals that align with your values and aspirations. Goals that inspire you and motivate you to grow.
Yeah, I think goal setting can feel overwhelming sometimes.
It can be.
Where do you even begin?
Well, start by reflecting on what truly matters to you.
Okay.
What kind of life do you want to create? What impact do you want to make on the world?
Okay.
From there, you can start to identify specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals that align with your vision.
That makes it feel a little less daunting.
Right.
Breaking those big goals down into smaller, more manageable steps.
Absolutely.
And celebrating those small victories along the way.
Yeah, celebrating those wins is important.
Right.
Remember, Maslow's emphasis on peak experiences.
Yes.
Actively seeking out experiences that evoke those feelings of joy, awe, and connection.
Yeah.
Can be incredibly enriching.
Yeah, like what?
It could be listening to inspiring music, attending a live performance, spending time in nature, engaging in creative pursuits.
Yeah.
What activities light you up?
Okay.
Make you feel truly alive?
I love that.
Yeah.
It's about making space in our lives for those things that bring us joy.
Exactly.
And remind us what it means to feel fully present and engaged.
Absolutely.
It's important to cultivate self-compassion along the way.
Self-compassion is key.
We are often our own worst critics.
We are, aren't we?
What if we treated ourselves with the same kindness and understanding?
That's a great point.
That we would offer a close friend.
It's about shifting that perspective.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we're all human.
Yeah.
We all make mistakes. It's okay to be imperfect.
Right. Remember Roger's idea of unconditional positive regard?
Yes.
We can extend that same acceptance to ourselves.
Absolutely.
Recognizing that we are worthy of love and belonging.
Yes.
Regardless of our flaws or shortcomings.
Precisely.
That's a good reminder. It's so easy to get caught up in that self-criticism.
It is.
And forget to treat ourselves with kindness.
It happens to the best of us.
But with all this focus on personal growth,
is
there a downside?
That's a great question.
Can we get so caught up in becoming the best version of ourselves?
It's a good point.
That we lose sight of what truly matters?
It's crucial to remember that personal growth isn't a destination. It's an ongoing journey. And like any journey, there will be twists and turns, ups and downs.
Sure.
It's not about striving for some unattainable ideal of perfection.
Right.
It's about embracing the process of becoming, learning, and evolving throughout our lives.
It does take the pressure off, right?
It is.
It's not about reaching some arbitrary finish line.
Right.
It's about embracing the journey and finding that joy in the process of becoming.
Absolutely.
But how do we balance this focus on personal growth?
That's a good question.
With our responsibilities to others, to our communities, to the world around us.
That's a crucial point, and I think it really speaks to the heart of what humanistic psychology is all about.
Okay.
It's not just about individual fulfillment. It's about recognizing our interconnectedness and contributing to the well-being of others and the planet as a whole.
So it's not just about me, myself, and I.
Exactly. Think back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Okay.
Once those basic needs are met,
Right.
we naturally strive for love, belonging, and a sense of purpose beyond ourselves.
Yeah.
That desire to connect with something greater is woven into our very nature.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
We're social creatures, after all.
We are.
We thrive in community, in connecting with others,
Absolutely.
and contributing to something bigger than ourselves.
Right.
But how do we find that balance?
That's the question.
How do we nurture our own growth while making a positive impact on the world around us?
I think that's a question each of us has to kind of explore for ourselves.
Yeah. It's about finding what resonates with your values, your passions, and your unique gifts.
Okay.
It could be volunteering your time,
Right.
donating to this horse, causes you believe in, speaking out against injustice.
Okay.
It could be as simple as being kind and compassionate in your daily interactions.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that even small acts of kindness can create a ripple effect,
They really can.
making the world a slightly better place.
Absolutely.
It's about finding those opportunities to contribute to something larger than ourselves.
Yeah.
Whether it's our local community or the global community as a whole.
Right. And it's not about being perfect
Right.
or single-handedly saving the world.
Yeah.
It's about doing what you can with what you have where you are.
Okay.
It's about embracing that messy, imperfect beauty of being human and striving to make a positive difference, one small act at a time.
Well said.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm feeling really inspired by all of this.
I'm glad to hear that.
But before we wrap up,
I think it's important to acknowledge that there have been some criticism of humanistic psychology.
Right.
We touched upon those briefly earlier.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to explore them in a little more depth.
Sure. It's important to consider different perspectives.
Yeah.
No approach is without its limitations.
So what are some of the main criticisms that have been raised?
One common criticism is that some of its concepts can be difficult to measure scientifically.
Okay.
How do you objectively measure self-actualization or unconditional positive regard?
Yeah.
That lack of empirical evidence makes it challenging to kind of validate some of these core ideas.
I see. So it's one thing to talk about them philosophically, but scientifically proving them is a whole other challenge.
It is.
What are some other criticisms?
Another critique is that humanistic psychology can be seen as overly optimistic, maybe even naive, in its focus on the positive aspects of human nature. Critics argue that it doesn't adequately address the darker side of humanity.
Yeah.
Things like selfishness, aggression, or even cruelty.
So the argument is it's a bit like looking at the world through rose-colored glasses.
That's one way to put it.
And ignoring some of those harsher realities.
Right, and there are also those who argue that the emphasis on individualism that's so central to humanistic psychology may not translate well to all cultures. You know, in collectivist cultures where the needs of the group are prioritized over individual desires, that focus on self-actualization might not resonate as strongly.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's important to consider that cultural context.
Absolutely.
And recognize that what works in one culture might not be universally applicable.
It's about appreciating the diversity of human experience and recognizing that there are many different paths to well-being.
So acknowledging these criticisms doesn't invalidate the entire perspective.
It does.
But it encourages us to think critically.
Absolutely.
And maintain a balanced view.
Yeah.
It reminds us that no single approach has all the answers.
Right.
And there's always room for growth and evolution
For sure.
in our understanding of human behavior.
I think one of the most valuable contributions of humanistic psychology is its emphasis on the individual's subjective experience. It reminds us that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to life. What works for one person may not work for another. It's about honoring your own unique path. Embracing your strengths and vulnerabilities and striving to live an authentic and meaningful life.
It feels very relevant today.
It does, doesn't it?
When there's so much pressure to conform to certain ideals or follow a prescribed path to success.
Right. It's about giving yourself permission to define success on your own terms and to create a life that aligns with your values and aspirations.
And that brings us to another interesting aspect of humanistic psychology. It's not static. It's constantly evolving and adapting.
It is.
What are some of the emerging trends?
Oh, it was a great question.
Or areas of exploration within humanistic psychology today?
Well, one area that's getting increasing attention is the intersection of humanistic psychology and technology as we navigate an increasingly digital world.
Right.
There are a lot of questions about how technology impacts our well-being, our relationships, and even our sense of self.
It's a very relevant topic.
It is, isn't it?
It's like we're constantly bombarded with information and connected to everyone and no one at the same time.
It's a paradox of the digital age.
So how can humanistic psychology help us navigate this digital world?
Yeah, how can we use these principles
in a way that supports our well-being and our connections with others?
Well, some researchers are exploring how technology can actually be used to enhance human connection, to foster empathy and promote personal growth.
Right.
For example, virtual reality is being used to create these immersive experiences that allow you to step into the shoes of others, fostering a deeper sense of understanding and compassion.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Right. It's like taking empathy to a whole new level.
Yeah.
What other ways is technology being used in conjunction with those humanistic principles?
Yeah, what else?
There's also growing interest in using artificial intelligence to personalize mental health support. Imagine like AI-powered chatbots that could provide a listening ear, offer coping strategies, and even connect you with human therapists when needed.
That's incredible.
It is, isn't it?
It's almost like having a virtual therapist available 24/7.
Right. But of course, there are questions about that human element.
Yeah, can AI really replace the warmth and empathy?
That's the big question.
Like the genuine human connection.
It's a question that's being actively debated.
Yeah.
While AI can play a valuable role in providing support and resources, it's unlikely to fully replace that nuanced understanding and empathy that comes from human interaction.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
There's just something special about connecting with another human being.
Right.
Feeling heard and understood.
On a deeper level.
On a deeper level.
And that's where humanistic psychology can offer such valuable insights. It reminds us that technology is a tool.
Yeah.
And like any tool, it can be used for good or for ill.
Right.
It's up to us to use technology in ways that promote connection, foster empathy, and support our well-being.
Okay, so technology is one area where humanistic psychology is evolving and adapting.
Right.
What other emerging trends are you seeing?
Another trend that's gaining momentum is a focus on social justice. And addressing those systemic issues that create barriers to individual and collective well-being.
So it's not just about personal growth in a vacuum.
Right.
It's about recognizing how social and political structures can impact our lives and our ability to thrive.
Exactly. More and more, humanistic psychologists are engaging in activism, advocacy, and community organizing to address issues like poverty, discrimination, and climate change. Recognizing that these issues have a profound impact on well-being, both individually and collectively.
It's about taking those humanistic values of empathy, compassion, and social responsibility.
Absolutely.
And putting them into action. On a larger scale, working to create a more just and equitable world where everyone has the opportunity to reach their full potential.
I think that's a beautiful way to put it.
Thank you.
This focus on social justice is really a natural extension of that humanistic perspective, which recognizes that we're all interconnected and that our well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of others and the planet as a whole.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So we've got technology, social justice as emerging trends. Within humanistic psychology,
right,
are there other areas that you see as ripe for exploration?
Another area that's getting a lot of attention is the integration of mindfulness and contemplative practices into therapy and personal development.
Mindfulness.
Yeah.
It's definitely a hot topic these days.
It is.
But for those who might not be familiar, what exactly is mindfulness? And how does it fit into this humanistic framework?
So mindfulness is essentially the practice of paying attention to the present moment without judgment. It's about noticing your thoughts, feelings, and sensations without getting carried away by them.
Right.
And when you bring this mindful awareness into your everyday life, you can start to break free from those habitual patterns of thinking and behaving that might not be serving you well.
So it's like hitting the pause button on autopilot.
Exactly.
And becoming more conscious of your thoughts and actions.
And when you're more aware of your thoughts and feelings,
right,
you can start to make more conscious choices.
Okay.
Instead of just reacting automatically to situations, you can choose how you want to respond. And this ability to choose, to exercise your free will, is at the very heart of humanistic psychology.
Okay, so you're not just a passenger in your own life.
Right.
You're taking the wheel.
You're in the driver's seat.
And steering in the direction you want to go.
Exactly.
But how do you actually practice mindfulness?
Good question.
Is it about sitting on a meditation cushion for hours?
It can be, but it doesn't have to be.
Okay.
Mindfulness can be practiced in countless ways throughout your day.
Like what?
Maybe it's paying attention to your breath while you're washing the dishes.
Okay.
Or savoring each bite of food.
Right.
It's about bringing that mindful awareness to those everyday moments.
It sounds like a way to cultivate more peace and presence.
It is.
In a world that's constantly demanding our attention.
In this fast-paced world, it's a valuable practice.
Yeah.
And what's great about mindfulness is that it's accessible to anyone. Regardless of your background or beliefs, it's a simple practice, but it can have a truly profound impact on your life.
I'm definitely going to explore this more.
I encourage you to.
So we've got technology, social justice, and mindfulness.
Yes.
As emerging trends within humanistic psychology.
That's right.
It's so clear that this perspective is not just some relic of the past.
It's not. It's still very relevant.
It's a living, breathing approach to understanding human nature and promoting well-being in a world that's constantly changing.
It really is. And I think one of the most enduring legacies of humanistic psychology is this emphasis on asking big questions, challenging the status quo, and really envisioning a better future for ourselves and for humanity.
So it's not just about accepting things as they are.
It's not about complacency.
But it's about striving for something more,
Right.
for a world where everyone has the opportunity to flourish and reach their full potential.
Absolutely. And I think that's where humanistic psychology can offer such valuable insights. It reminds us that we have the power to shape our own lives, to create meaningful connections, and to contribute to the well-being of our communities and the planet.
If humanistic psychology focuses on reaching our full potential, what would you say are some of the societal structures or limitations
That's a great question.
that might prevent us from doing so?
That is a great question, and I think it's one that each of us needs to reflect on.
Yeah.
It invites us to think critically about the systems and structures that shape our lives, and to consider how we might create a world that truly supports individual and collective flourishing.
That's a powerful thought to leave our listeners with.
I hope so.
I think we've only just scratched the surface of this rich and fascinating field.
Yeah.
And I really encourage you to delve deeper, to ask your own questions.
Absolutely.
And discover how humanistic psychology can enrich your life and the lives of those around you.
I think it's a journey worth taking.
It's been a pleasure diving into these ideas with you.
Likewise, I've enjoyed our conversation.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep striving to become the best version of yourself.